Hello, guys. Welcome to the podcast Asian Fusion. I'm Dhanush. I'm here with my co host, Yuan and Nagisa. We are master students of urban studies and planning, which is a joint program between Aalto University and University of Helsinki. We are excited to take you on a journey exploring urban stories in Asia through the lens of what we have learned in our urban experiences course.
That's right. In this podcast, we will be discussing how urban concepts, often studied in a Western European context, applies to countries like India, Taiwan, and Japan. We will reflect on the insights we have gained from the urban experience course and how they relate to the cities we know and experiences in Asia.
We will dive into topics like cities aesthetics, safety, sense of community, place attachment, and restorative environment. We'll compare different perspectives on cities, discuss real life examples, and bring in our personal experiences.
So, whether you're passionate about urban studies or just curious of how cities evolve across different cultures, stick to the end. Let's explore the fascinating world of urban experiences from west to east.
Let's get started. So let's introduce ourselves first. I'm Ewan. I'm from Taiwan, and I studied anthropology as my bachelor's degree. And how about you, Nagisa?
Yeah, I did my bachelor's in sociology of education.
Yeah, I did my bachelor's in architecture, and that was like 5 years course. And then I pursued 2 years of professional practice in a city called Bangalore. It's a metropolitan city. Now I'm here studying urban cities and planning.
Yeah, I was also doing my bachelor in the capital city, which was Taipei, and it was a really dense, populated city compared to my hometown Thailand, which was 1,000 parts in Taiwan. And I've been to Japan for several times, so I really want to know like how was it? How's it in Japan?
Yeah, I mean, I think, as you know, like Tokyo is a very big metropolitan city with 40 million population. But like I'm originally from Kyushu City, which is located in the southern part of Japan, and the population is a bit less than 1 million. Like we are surrounded by mountains and the sea. We have very nice fish. The sashimi is nice, and climate is pretty calm. And yeah. What about you, Danush?
Yeah, so I come from a small city, which is a population of 1.3 million.
It's
Yeah.
not small.
Yeah, according to Indian context, I think it's the smallest city, I
Yeah.
would say. But it's also, yeah, it's the southern part of India. It's in a state called Karnataka, and it's the climate is pleasant. Actually, that's one of the most ideal city in the state to live in. And it's a very quiet city, very slow pace. It's not fast. And my childhood was very good. When I have to compare it to city, we had big parks, lovely trees, beautiful boulevards, and we have wonderful culture as well. So we have this every year we have a festival called Dasara, which is again moderated from uh, the monarch times. And of course, the food is something that I don't have to say. Indian food is the best, I would say. And we have contributed, I think, masala dosa comes from the south of India, and and yeah, so on.
Yeah, like compared to India, Taiwan is really like a small country, small island in Asia. We have only like 23 million people, but the capital city are quite dense, especially like Taipei, and most of the population is concentrated in the western part of the island, like Taipei, Taichung, and Kaohsiung. And geographically, Taiwan is quite unique. It's a mix of flat plain and mountains, and we're surrounded by the ocean. Yeah, so we're also famous for street food.
Street food.
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah. they're really delicious, I think.
Yeah, it is quite curious, right? So this urban course that we took, the urban experience was all about figuring out what is to live in a city, right? Like how do you experience a city with respect to an urban context? So how would you describe Nagisa? Like how would you describe your city?
My hometown is an industrial city,
Right.
like which is we had the first governmental steel factory.
Yeah.
And then since they built that factory, like we developed a lot with industry, and then like we have very much sense of community, like within the like working class people.
Yeah. What about you, Ivan?
I would say like Taipei and Tainan, this both city I live, are like famous for its like cultural industry. Yeah, there are lots of like cinemas and like parks, so people can enjoy a lot of different kinds of entertainments in the city. Yeah, and Tainan is also a really historical city because we developed really early than other cities.
Yeah.
So there are lots of historical sites in Tainan. Yeah. So let's go to the next part.
First, I would like to talk about one concept we learned in the course called like phase attachment. In urban studies, there is a difference between space and phase. Space is usually just normal physical space, and the place is a meaningful space for individuals. It depends on like the person. I heard in India, like the religious sites play important role in like the place attachment. But like, what's your opinion?
Yeah, I think so I would like to start with like an analogy. So there was an article back home that in my bachelor's that we wrote was the difference between a Western and an Eastern context, or European and an Asian context. So this is an analogy form where you have European context is like a cake, and Indian context is like so this food called. So I'm just gonna improvise a bit because it's easy to understand. So Indian context is like biryani, and European context is like a cake, where when you cut a slice of cake, all the pieces are the same, and even the flavors are the same. But in biryani, it's not like that. When you take a bite, every bite is a different bite. So yeah, so you have so many layers, so many factors which is influencing Indian urban context. And I think, yes, of course, religion would be one of the main key factor which is playing how the cities are formed. And on the top of my head, I can think of one small city which is in southern part of India. It's in Tamil Nadu. It's called Madurai. And in Madurai city, there is this temple called Srirangam, where you have this five concentric rings from the complex the city is kind of evolved. The entire origin of the city or the layout of the city is kind of mapped out through the history where the deity comes. So that's the religion that you were talking about, where the main idol comes in the center, and you have concentric rings around the idol where it's a gateway to enter. So you enter from a market square, and then you enter into a plaza square where you have dining spaces and kitchen spaces, and then you have spaces for rituals like yagnas and yagas, and then you have the main temple itself. So these kinds of religious beliefs kind of form the city layouts, and the people around the complex have been diverged in the cardinal directions, and the road network kind of follows the same networks as the complex layout, which is and I do agree in some of the cases in Indian context we tend to follow our beliefs, and that's how the cities have been formed. Yeah.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I feel like we have a similar city in Japan as well. There are cities like the temples is in the middle of the city, and then the city itself is formed surrounding the temple. And yeah.
Yeah, that's similar in Taiwan as well.
Yeah.
Interesting.
Yes, like temples is the like religious hall, and there will be like kind of markets or vendors around it.
I've been to Taiwan twice, and I also feel like the traditional markets are important for people living there as well. But like, what do you think?
Yeah, like Taiwan has a really different kind of traditional markets compared to Europe context. I think, like for example, there are morning markets and evening markets, like two different kinds of markets. So in the morning, a lot of like stay-at-home parents or like elderlies go like grocery shopping there really early before they work. That's when the produce is the freshest. So they buy their ingredients for the whole day's meal. Then there will be evening markets. So people usually stop there after work to grab fresh vegetables, meats, and other ingredients. The interesting thing is that this market doesn't just sell grocery ingredients. They also sell like cooked dishes and like ready to eat meals, like food, something street food. It's kind of like the markets in Helsinki, but like bigger scale and more casual, more local. Every city has like multiple traditional markets, but people tend to go their like preferences. For example, I go like buy meats in this one and go buy fruits in another one. Living in the city, you naturally explore different traditional markets to figure out where to get the best ingredients and how to shop in a way that fits your lifestyle. And through this process, a citizen will end up forming a deeper connection with the city itself, I think.
That's very interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So do you happen to say that the markets kind of create a place?
Yeah,
In
like
space.
like my mom, she usually like go to certain traditional markets before she go to work, and because we have lived in the same place for several years, so she kind of have a like really deep connection, friendship with the vendors there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit similar in India as well. Like, so you were talking about religion. So the cities varies because of their beliefs. So some part of the southern part of India is completely different from the northern part of India because the beliefs is different.
Yeah.
And the space is kind of made into a place by a belief of a place. So there are these stories which goes on in the history, what happened and what kind of deity came, or there's some king who made the thing. So that kind of gives the morphology of the city's layout, which is kind of nice to understand how like how you're saying, a place becomes a space.
Yeah.
No, space.
Oh, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Space becomes a place.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, it's very interesting to see the differences between the Indian and Taiwan context. Yeah, let's go to the next topic. And there was another concept called like restorative environments we learned in the course, like which is where people recover and like you can get like relax or like engaging recreational activities and so on. And in India, like I have an image that people are doing yogas and other like relaxation activities. But, like how do the riverbanks and the guts function as the restorative environments?
So yoga, it's a little bit stereotypical, but okay.
Sorry.
I would take the pride of saying that is India has internationally advocated for yoga, and yes, I think river guards has been one of the most significant part for spirituality and for yoga as well. I think as we learned in through the course that nature has the most um, restorative energy in the human being, and just by observing nature, one would be able to get back the spirit. And I would like to give an example in India. There's a city called Varanasi, and again it is formed through a religious belief, and it is located right next to the ghats of river Ganga, and Ganga again is one of the significant rivers in India, and we have a whole story, which is I'm not going to get into that. But if you think about the urban experience, the whole ghat, there is about 18 ghats in along the city side, and each ghat is kind of creating different ambience for people to activating the space. So there is this starting from one ghat which is meant for only recreational activities, another ghat which is completely for spiritual activities like meditation and doing rituals next to the river. And so there's varieties of cards, and another important part of placing any activity next to a river or water body is that it creates a sense of calmness. I would say the sound of the river flowing or the wind breeze. So you get more connected to the nature, and I think this is relevant to any other city as well. Like if you think of a modern city like in Ahmedabad, where you have the river going through the city. So now there is a recently a project done by if I'm not wrong, by architect Bimal Patel from India, and he has done a riverfront job where he takes the idea of the ghats from Varanasi and try to implement into a very urban and a very modern city like Ahmedabad. So I would say Varanasi is more of a spiritual city where you take the essence of what you have from the past and then they try to fit into the context of contemporary context, right? In the contemporary context where he's taken the gods as a reference and as his inspirations, and he's designed a beautiful riverfront where people go for leisures. And yes, I would say a water body is a very restorative environmental aspect in the city.
Yeah.
Is there any like similar activities in Taiwan? Or
Not really similar, but like the urban context is really different. Like in Taiwan, especially in Taipei, because Taipei is a really dense city. Like it's located in the basin, so the city center is really flat and packed with high rising buildings. So it's the busiest part of the city. But surrounding Taipei, there are lots of like hills and mountainous areas. So because of the density, green spaces are pretty limited. So a lot of people, especially on weekdays nights or on weekends, they will go hiking in the nearby mountains, which are like really super easy to reach by the MRT kind of metro. And there's also, for example, like Shan, it's a mountain in Beitou district. They have the hot spring sources there. Yeah. So lots of citizens, like urban citizens, they go there to relax and enjoy when they have free time.
water is like influencing differently for like as a restorative environment. I feel.
Yeah.
I feel like in Japan, like we also have rivers, but like they were not as utilized as in India, as Danish mentioned. And maybe like in Kyoto, like there's a river, and then like especially in summer, people are enjoying. Like,
Right.
yeah, lead time.
Like in my experience when I was traveling in Japan, especially in Tokyo, like I was really surprised that like in the city center there are a lot of like kind of hot spring. I don't know how to say that in Japanese. Like hot spring shops, hot spring stores.
So it's like sauna in the
Yeah, kind of.
Sauna. Yeah, public bus, you mean?
Yeah, kind of. There are a lot of people, especially like elderly people, like young people. I feel like they go there after work, like in weekdays.
Yeah, true.
Yeah, it's kind of their ways to like relax.
Yeah. The public bus part of culture in Tokyo.
Yeah,
people used to go there a lot, but like the number is decreasing. But recently, like people love sauna. Like it's pretty much influenced by Finland, but So like they are evolving their own unique fashionable sauna as well.
Okay.
That's interesting.
Yeah.
Right. So let's move on to the next topic, sense of community. I think back in India we have a community which is defined by what kind of activities the community does. I think now it's become more of corporate, I would say. If people who are making money, they have a certain kind of housing and they stay in a community, gated community, and other people who are making moderately, so they stay in a different neighborhood. So I think also the neighborhoods are defined based on occupation and what kind of salary that they're getting per month. And also there are these elements or like the features which makes it more unique. So in some places they have the idea of courtyards or common spaces, community kitchens to make it more engaging where different types of people can come. So the diversity is kind of happening in a larger scale, you know. So what do you think about that? So let's talk about that sense of community. What are the important elements that help build a sense of community in your cities? Nagisa?
Yeah, talking about the separation based on occupations, I feel like there are not that many in Japan. Like, for example, sometimes you see a skyscraper and right next to a very low wooden house or something. So like it's very like mixed, and that's the urban situation in Japan. And then like in Tokyo, I feel like the very small scale shops are pretty important for communities.
Right.
And yeah, because the land is very limited and the land price is super high. So like you need to make it very small. And then like those like individually owned shops are selling like mm, food or like very small gifts and so on. Yeah, like on the street, like there are so many of those shops, and then like it is creating cozy atmosphere.
Right.
And yeah, and then like people can interact each other, and especially like in areas called shitamachi, like just traditional downtowns in Tokyo.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's very interesting that you brought this tiny shops.
Mm-hmm.
So back in India, we have this thing called tea stalls.
Mm.
It's very small. It's somewhere about 2 meters by 2 meters box, and it's very temporal in nature. And they can easily remove it and then dismantle it and put it in some other place. Where they're a little bit nomadic also. They keep traveling from city to city. The people who are selling the thing. So I think they sell cigarettes. They sell beverages like tea, coffee, and some sodas, and some small snacks like cookies and things like that. So they know how to develop a sense of belonging to this place or a sense of community, you know. And this community I'm talking with respect to like work culture. So when there is a corporate office happening in certain area, so and in that area it's just corporate offices, like how we have in Killinimi or in Espoo, where you have just offices which are dedicated to dedicated for that area, and they pick a very strategic location where all these people can come to that shop, and that creates some sense of community, which can be very intangible sometimes, you know. So it becomes like a smokers gang. It becomes like people who are tea addicts. So they need tea every 3 hours, 4 hours. So they keep going for that. So that also creates some sense of community. Yeah. So that's a very interesting point. What about you, Ivan? Is the same thing in your place as well?
I feel like compared to like store, in Taiwan we are more into the vendors.
Right.
Yeah, street foods. So there is kind of market called night market. It's different from the traditional market that I mentioned previously. It starts from like 6, 7 p.m. until midnight sometimes. Night market in Taiwan are not just about like shopping and food. They are actually act as a like major social hubs. So we, no matter what age, genders, or like social status, your class, all of the people go there to grab the food or like just hang out with friends. A lot of night markets actually developed around temple plazas, like in front of the temples, because like in the past, temple was kind of the social hubs for people. So people like usually gather around the temples, and there will be vendors, and after that, the vendors like become a kind of night markets. Yeah, like temple have always been really important space for like religious and social activities. So
So would you say that kind of creates sense of community around the
yeah,
neighborhood?
yeah,
Okay.
yeah.
So these vendors that you talk about, where do they stay? Like, where do they come from? Like, are they in the same neighborhood around the temple complex, or?
Well, I feel like the vendors are mostly from the neighborhoods in the past, but after the vendors become kind of the night market, they are more organized. So, like in different cities, in different districts, they will have their own like bigger or smaller night markets. Like people can like have like social interactions there, and I feel like they become kind of key places for communities to connect and form kind of social bonds.
Right.
Yeah.
That's very interesting because back in India also we have this concept of Sunday markets where
Yeah.
you find a open plaza. These are technically farmers who come from villages to town, and they find a spot, and this spot is not given by the government or any municipality, and they just figure it out because there's an activity from the residents, and they kind of cultivate some sense of community or belonging in that space.
So it's kind of like citizen organized
Bottom up.
Yeah, bottom up approach. I think that's where, as an urban planners, that's where we should come in and look at these kinds of sensible scenarios where small things are happening, which are a little bit intangible, and to explain or to understand. But if you can try to grasp the concept of it and why is it happening and what it is breaking, I think these features can be used in urban planning to make it more approachable and to create a stronger sense of community.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah, that's very insightful, guys.
Yeah. I feel like in Japan, like the shopping streets,
Right.
in front near the stations or something, and then like there are so many small shops. I think they're usually built from bottom up initiatives. Like it's not like the local government decides to like build this shopping street here, and then like we gather all the vendors here. Or it's not like that. Yeah.
Yeah. Even we have this word called bazaar. Bazaar is basically the street, the shopping street. And if there are residents who are going to one known bazaar, so that becomes like, their gang. So that creates some sort of sense of community.
Yeah.
So whoever goes to that street, shopping street becomes one gang, and whoever goes to another shopping street becomes another gang. Yeah. So this strengthening of community can be from any side, So there are different layers, different factors that can make it more stronger.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think it's very interesting. Yeah. Thank you for that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so next we are going to talk about the aesthetic experiences. Like I feel like aesthetic experiences are really important aspects in the urban concepts. Like in Taiwan, we are always talking. We have the issues that people always discuss. Like, is our like urban beautiful enough, or like I mean, compared to Western concepts? Like Danish, can you share your city, like especially the colorful markets and street arts influence aesthetics in India? Because this is a really like a special trait in India.
Actually, that's true. I think most of the cities gets his charm from the streets that they have, So and each streets has its own quality, and like how we have Alexandra Street in Helsinki is because of this history and etc. etc. So I think if we talk about beauty, um, I would say beauty is something a little bit subjective, and and beauty can be anything. So, like how they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder.
Yeah.
So I think in Indian markets, streets, if you go, I don't think a Western person would last for a long time because it is chaotic. It's very chaotic, and you will get lost in the market.
Yeah.
But the beauty is that you experience that chaos. That's the beauty.
Yeah.
It's not about, of course, there's vibrant colors there, and you have things that they're selling. And this market which I'm talking is not the one you find supermarkets in the malls or whatever. This is hardcore local farmers market where you get to see the actual vendors selling their products which they have grown, right? And the way how they decorate it, there's some sense of aestheticness to that. So that kind of reflects around the neighborhood as well. So the street is what if we consider as one market street. So that has its own character. So there will be a little bit of everything. So you start with the vegetables, then hardware, then you would have electrical, then you would have the meat section. So market streets are very different in that way. And yeah, I think it's much be similar in Japan as well.
Yeah. We also have very chaotic landscape in Tokyo as well.
Yeah, I think that's the beauty of it, right?
Yeah,
I
like,
agree with that.
Yeah. So,
yeah.
but aesthetic experience, I would say it depends. Like, what is the aesthetic? Like, how can we define aesthetic
Yeah.
experience? Like if you see a marble, it's beautiful. But there's this beautiful quote. I forget the author, but he says, if you can see beauty in marble and the other person can see beauty in mud, his soul, the guy who sees beauty in the mud, his soul is more pure
Yeah.
than the guy who sees beauty. So, so aesthetic is something a little bit subjective. I think when it comes to urban planning, it's all about if you create certain activity, certain vibrance in through people, that is aesthetic according to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, aside from that, I also think about people studying like urban planning or architecture. They get their like knowledge from the Western, like history or something. But actually, like in modern society, we, especially as an Asian, we need to like reflect and think about like how to build up our like own aesthetics. For
Yes.
example,
Yeah.
like Taiwanese style, Indian style, Japanese style. Yeah, I think they are like really unique and
Yeah.
different from like Western standard Western
Yeah.
style.
I think
Yeah.
that's the one of the wrong which is happening, like the gentrification, if you see,
Yeah.
and the loss of identity crisis. Like for example, let's take Kalasatama, where it's a beautiful layout, very efficient, very pragmatic, very functional, I would say. But if you take the same buildings and put it in some other city in Asia, it looks the same. There is no contextual identity.
Yeah, the traits of the
Yeah, so that's
district.
where architecture come in. So the aesthetic of the building comes from the context.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I agree
Yeah.
with that. And in Tokyo, like you said, how does urban design balance modernity and traditional aesthetic in your perspective?
Yeah. As I said, like, yeah, there is a very chaotic aspect in Tokyo. Like, for example, I think if you hear the word Tokyo, like you would imagine like modern, or maybe you will also imagine the neon signs in the city center. Then we also have the shrines and temples, like the traditional architecture as well. I feel like recently, maybe the religious shrines and temples are kept, but like some of the wooden traditional houses can be like gentrified. Maybe sometimes the urban planning like decide the aesthetics like based on Western standard, and then like it's very easy to say like it's not beautiful. The chaos is not beautiful.
Yes.
Yeah, but it is our uniqueness, right?
Yeah.
So
I agree with that.
Yeah, I think when it comes to urban policies, urban as an urban planner, you need to make sure that you're not planning for right now, but you're planning for the future. When someone is just building in that street, how would they kind of adapt to that street? But right now, what's happening, the person who comes with more money wants to make the best use of the site. So he brings other materials such as very industrial material like glass and steel and things like that, which is fine, but does it imply the contextual aesthetics that we're talking about? So again, that's something that we need to ponder on. Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. We need to talk about the perceived safety issue. In Finland, I feel like perceived safety is a really important and valued aspects in Finnish society. It's also an essential part of urban living. So, like, what urban features contribute to a sense of safety in Indian cities, in your perspective, Danish?
Yeah. That's actually kind of a tricky question, I would say. Safety in with respect to safety with respect to women, or let's say gender. I think women's safety is still a little bit a problem back in India,
Yeah.
and which is slowly getting reformed. There are norms being made by the government to remedy these kinds of assumptions that we have over the safety issues. I think, yeah, this is a little bit tough because when I see Finland, the safety is about the accessibility of it. So if the ramp is right, if the staircase are right, and the people are very reserved a little bit so that they not bother others. But back home, since it's a little bit chaotic, as city planners, I think we are trying to make it as accessible for everyone as possible so that there is activity on the street. I think I could quote Jane Jacobs, like, if you have eyes on the street, you have safety in the neighborhood. And I think India is thriving towards that. And even the city planners are trying to develop some kind of surveillance systems and a good street light system. You have automatic street lights which are charged by solar panels. So they're going so in that direction, I would say. Yeah.
Nagisa, in your perspective, like when I was like traveling in Japan, I found that convenience store is really like common in especially in Tokyo. Like because in Taipei there are like you can easily get a convenience store in each block. So in your perspective, what do you think convenience store contributed to safety and especially for like in gender issues for women living alone in Tokyo?
Yeah, I feel convenience stores are one of the reasons why women can feel safe at night because like it's always like well lit and then like even when you have problems like maybe you can just call for help at the convenience stores and then they are open 24/7 like all year round. It's very convenient even when you have problem as well. I mean, in general, Japanese cities, like including Tokyo, are pretty safe.
Yeah.
But like, still, I mean, like even though the convenience stores can enhance like safety for women as well, but like it doesn't mean that as a woman, like who is walking alone at night, I will feel a bit unsafe at night.
Yeah.
I mean, it is a very dense city, and like you don't know like who is living next to you, so like,
Yeah.
it's just very difficult. And like also like there's a map of dangerous incidents happened in your neighborhood. Like you can see it. It's published by the Metropolitan like police, and then like I often checked that when I was living in Tokyo, and then like there was one incident right next to my house, and I was so scared of going out alone, and then, yeah, I was always shutting down the curtains, and then I didn't put my like laundry outside.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah,
That is tough thing.
yeah, like in Taiwan, compared to Finland, I think in Taiwan we are more mixed used in zoning. So when there are like kind of shops, like restaurants, normal shops, convenience store in your residential areas, you will feel more safe different times a day. Yeah, that's my experiences.
Yeah.
I feel like Taiwan is safer than Japan, but like, do you think like that?
I would say that's because of the mixed-use zoning. Yeah,
Mhm.
because like there are also residential areas in Taiwan. When you walk there alone, especially at night when it's really dark, you kind of feel like unsafe because residents there usually drive their cars instead of walking on the street, so you cannot like ice on the streets.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah, I think even the layouts of the residential
Mm.
plots matters a lot because nowadays you just have these contractors who wants to make more money out of the land. They're just trying to fit in as many houses as they can with just not much proper ventilation or proper light. They don't have eyes on the street, you know.
Yeah.
So I think even the planning also has to refine in such a way that everyone has the right to view to the street.
Yeah,
Mm.
I agree.
Yeah, and there's some kind of activity on the ground floor, so that if they go on top, so that will be the residential part, but in the ground it will be vibrant,
Yeah.
so that there will be some people here or there, so that they feel safe.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yeah.
So let's move on to our conclusions.
Thank you guys. That was very insightful and it was a very thought-provoking conversation. To conclude, I would like to ask some of these questions. So we've tried to compare and analyze agendas or the learnings that we did from urban experiences course to two different contexts, that's the Western and the Eastern context. If you had to think of certain strategies from European context that can be implemented into our Asian cities and vice versa, would you think of any things?
I feel like the integration of nature into urban context is very insightful
Yeah.
for us as well. And I heard in Finland they have the light to explore and enjoy nature for
Yes.
everyone.
Yes.
But in Asian context, nature is maybe not as valued as Finnish context.
Yes.
So maybe we can think about restorative environments as urban planning strategy more.
Wonderful.
Yeah, I agree with that because I feel like many really big cities in Asian countries are really dense. The dens are expensive, so there are like really limited like green spaces in urban
Yes.
cities.
Yes, I think one of the main thing that I would say is European context or the culture of city planning is all about top to bottom approach, where you have a proper legislative system and that they kind of divide and authorize people to develop cities, which is working really well according to what we are seeing right now and experiencing the spaces. If we have to do the same thing back in Asian context, and the population unfortunately doesn't allow us to do something like that, I would say doing a bottom to top approach in our countries or in Asian context where the population is more. So we need to start from a smaller step rather than taking a bigger master plan to develop, which we can't achieve, and we need to take shorter targets and achieve shorter targets in shorter terms and then kind of develop to the bottom to top approach. Yeah, what do you guys think?
Yeah, we talked about the street life in Asian countries, and it's because we don't have very strong legislation in urban planning. So
Yes.
that's why we have very many bottom-up initiatives. Yeah, maybe in Finland or in other Western countries as well, they can have a bit of unplanned aspects in urban planning. Yeah.
That's a very bold statement, I would say. Yeah. What about you, Ivan?
Yeah, I also feel like kind of organizations or events that organized by people itself can make the city more lovely, and as a citizen you can explore more like different aspects when you're living in the city. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. I think that's what the course urban experience was trying to kind of uh, ask these questions, I would say. So I think the model of these six topics that we kind of discussed was the main key element to understand an urban context. And we've kind of tried to do that. And I would like to thank you both of you for the wonderful conversation and hopefully to see an episode 2 of this.
Yeah, we can expect that.
Yeah, surely. Surely. Thank you so much, guys.
Thank you so much.
Yeah.